Good morning. Thank you. Welcome, everybody. It's lovely to have everybody around the table. There's a lot to talk about today. We would like to, I'd like to move through the agenda for the meeting reasonably rapidly, like in an hour, because it's not all that comprehensive, not all that large. You would have received some dot points for the workshop, which is large, and there's a fair bit of crossover between meeting points and workshop points. Is there anybody who is not able to stay for the workshop?
I probably will have this.
So, but everybody else is. Okay, so what? About what time? Oh, sorry. The plan would be meeting from 10 to 11.
Yep.
Workshop from 11 to 1 with sandwiches in between. And then at that point, our brains will all be full anyway.
Absolutely.
And,
Full of pride.
Andy has mentioned that the workshop agenda is somewhat large, which I acknowledge, but still distributed it anyway. Acknowledgement of country. Could I ask them to do that for us?
Murray Council would like to acknowledge and pay respect to the traditional custodians of the land, the Nadjeri, Naywal, Nangaraku, Narkat, Nurrunjeri and Paramate peoples of the Mid-Murray lands and waters. It is upon their ancestral lands and waters that the Mid-Murray Council meets and operates, and Council pays respect to elders past and present and their spiritual beliefs that are of continuing importance to those First Nations peoples of today. Council further acknowledges the contributions and important role that First Nations peoples continue to play within the community, and we extend that respect to any peoples in attendance here today.
Thank you, Mayor Bailey. Attendance, apologies we have from Councillor Jen Davis, and we also have an apology from Sean Greer, who who was not due to be here because he was supposed to be in Tasmania, but unfortunately lost his mum very unexpectedly earlier in the week. So if he is watching this, which I hope he does, I'd like to express our sincere condolences on behalf of us gathered here today, because it's a difficult time. Item 4, confirmation of minutes. Would somebody like to move that we confirm and accept the minutes from the previous meeting? Kevin, and a second for that, Warren. And that's Carrie. Did I have to say Carrie?
All those in favour.
All those in favour?
I've
lost the thing.
And then just do against, just in case.
Yes. Okay, I think we so we've confirmed that the meetings from the last meeting have been accepted. Are there any declarations of interest relevant to the agenda of this meeting? No. And are there any deputations that we are aware of? No. First of our reports, 7.1, the Maritime Operations Group. Would you like to take that through that? Take us through that, Andy.
Sure, the minutes of the Maritime Operations Group from August, 5th of August, 25, in full on the agenda. Most items of standing nature, little bit of maintenance for all of the vessels are noted there. There's been a few issues with obviously with the tender boat and also the Mayflower of recent times, which we're working through or have worked through various areas. The committee were anxious to, well, back on the 5th of August, were anxious to make sure they were kept informed about the sustainability report and recommendations. So there's now a standing agenda item on their meeting as well. And beside the projects lists, which have all got the actions and updates included in there. for your information. There isn't much more to add.
Any questions for Andy on that report?
Thanks for putting the update so that you keep it up to date, because we don't want worries and things not being addressed.
Yeah.
I have two. I think there's a latter report that makes reference to Mayflower's engine being needed to be changed. Is it
For our Manham doc report?
doc report? Do we want to discuss that now? My main question is it okay, or is it being put back together, and do we have to actually change the engine?
In real terms, being put back together, preventative actions have been taken. However, the problem is beyond the head gasket, and the motor, the spare motor that we bought some time ago is being prepared for an engine changeover at some stage.
And
But we weren't at that point when
that, yeah, I realised
yeah.
that it's different. And what was the concern from the group in terms of volunteers and ESI? There's mention of concern about
It was,
I
I think there was a bit of feedback from Rockford's SE flew.
6.3. Concern of inexperienced people using ESI.
Yeah, the group and engineers felt that the Rockwood chef had overloaded the briquettes and restricted the flow of heat. And therefore it wasn't getting to temperature, which Rockwood's reported that there was an issue. The committee felt that it was just a bit of an inexperience in relation to stoking the fire and maintaining, which our engineers and firemen will keep a bit of an eye on. Yep.
So if they get a new person, like a new chef, who's in charge of instructing on the use of the, so.
Well, that's, we don't know who their chef is until, a couple of days before, but it's going to be, they're going to have to rely on our engineers and our firemen to get it working right. We always pre-light it and it's nice and hot. But unfortunately with those things, if you just dump too many of them in, it just won't ignite the oxygen and stuff.
I think they have different chef every time.
Oh, right.
So I don't think they do put stoves in chef school anymore.
Yes.
So,
I mean, somebody like Derek has had multiple years of.
yes, they have. He and Essie have a very special relationship.
And was it someone like Derek to write a standard operating procedure to help you or not?
Do it with your elbow, and you kick it with your foot that way, and then you rotate the tray 4 times. So
There's some basic instructions in there, or there used to be some basic instructions in
Yeah,
there.
right. Just gotta read them.
Yeah, and she is tricky. I'm sure if she doesn't like it, she doesn't.
Yeah. And look, if Rockford came to us and said, we've got a new chef coming on board in 3 or 4 weeks, we would try and, get them to come down a bit earlier and have someone there with them, but we don't get that.
So there is a company in Lothar that actually sells spare parts for all those older. Just wondering whether there's still basic operating manuals available, which may help us.
I had and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm assuming once we have a new Jenny in, we will have more power capacity, which then will allow probably another convection oven and some induction hot plates, which will alleviate some of that. Would any other comments or questions for Andy on that report? Would somebody like to move actually accept that report? Di, thank you. Second. Kevin, thank you. All in favour? Thank you. Carrie, 7.2. Madam Discovery Centre and vessel update report. Andy, so to you again.
This is where the information on the Mayflower will be found. The data for the full financial year is there. Volunteer visited numbers and volunteer hours associated with the visit VIC, the Discovery Centre, the Mayflower and the Marion. Are all listed there for review. It's a significant, obviously significant investment from volunteers and their time and their efforts. And without them, it would be very difficult to run certain of the vessels. So, as I mentioned, a few operational mechanical issues with Mayflower. You will have to have an engine changeover at some stage shortly. However, it's the nature of heritage machinery and very old Fords and tractor motors. They don't go wrong very often, but when they do, we're lucky it is a minor fault. We have already had to cancel the weekend escape cruise in August due mainly to low passenger numbers, but also being unable to get crew to work in the galley. And we are pushing forward with the September 1 at this point. We'll be assessing the passenger numbers at the end of the first week in September. Marion tender boat, which took on water and essentially sunk, even though it was still floating, which is good. The matter was dealt with on Saturday. It was ripped out of the water by a crane, sent off for remedial work by a mechanic, and that saved the outboard motor. It has been river tested and put back into service. And we only really had to replace the UHF radio and a few other bits and pieces. So there is an insurance claim underway for that. Vesna is our third tourism and cruise coordinator in Mannum, and she has undertaken as part of her first 5 months with us to do a draft Discovery Centre improvement plan. Which is a really good piece of work. So we're just refining that at the moment, creating some priorities. Then it will come to the committee for further comment as we work through there. Arnold Gallery's been really busy. Currently the Sala exhibition, but for the first time we held drawing workshops in there with Suzanne Briley Westall. And they were very popular. She did those for free because she didn't want to make any money out of the whole process. So that was another good use for the gallery. And the visitor centre, of course, just continues to be the hub for all of that. That is the report.
Questions, comments? Les? Oh, sorry. Les first.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I've mentioned this before briefly, but I have concerns about the fact that we've got a number of very active committees which present really good reports to this group on a regular basis. However, there is one area, and I'm talking about the Discovery Centre, Interpreting Centre, call it what you like, which encompasses everything behind the front counter to the shed, to the Randall dock, etc. It's a huge resource, which I'll talk about later in the workshop. But we used to have a very active, hard-working committee of 5 or 6 people, including the local history people, that looked at that centre, planned where it was going to go in the future, because it's a huge asset to the town, to the district. And that committee has disappeared. It has not been active. There's a couple of people who certainly want to see it become active because it's a critical part of our infrastructure. Now, I'm pleased to hear what Andy said then about somebody who unfortunately I haven't met yet, who's presenting some sort of document which might be a path for the future. But I can't stress enough that there were some very experienced people in that group, pre-flood, who were looking at the planning and the future and grants, and we did get a couple in terms of where we go with that Discovery Centre in the future. Where's it going to be in 4 or 5 years? How are we going to fund it? Can we still source grants? Are they still around? I believe they are. Because that's going to be, as much as the marine side of things, that's going to be a core centerpiece of what we've got in the region. And I just think it's being ignored. And I would like to call for a reinstatement of that committee, so that it can do what the Marine Operations Group does and all that sort of thing. We are so focused, and we should be, boats and everything that hangs off boats. But we are ignoring a real potential asset.
Andy, would you respond?
Yeah, we're currently looking at tranche 2, which the Discovery Centre will be part of. The discussion around committees, working groups, and other things will be part of that list.
Well, I guess my question is, why has that committee been put to sleep when it deals with such a critical asset? And it's been asleep for 3 years now. And I think it's time. It's just a simple matter of getting some people together with whoever you dictate and start to work on that. It can't be the work of one person.
No, it isn't. It's not going to be the work of one person, because I can't take that on. However, committees are great, but if we need a committee, we'll get a committee. If we don't deem not to need a committee, it won't be one form. But that was one of the tasks that Andrew came on board a couple of years ago and said,
Not deliver.
give me 12 months and I'll get a group together, a guiding group. I think part of Vestner's work will certainly necessitate a regular working group for ideas and implementation and future thoughts. Whether we call it a committee, whether we take minutes, whatever we're doing with it is yet to be determined, but it's part and parcel of
I'm
that.
not suggesting it has to be anything other than reinvented. It's always been a part of our infrastructure, a part of our committee infrastructure, always been. It's just simply been forgotten. There are people out there who are still prepared to come back into that group and continue that work with the assistance of whoever you might identify. But the fact is, that aspect of our operation has just been pushed aside. And I came onto this committee 3 committees ago, years, on the basis of 2 things. 1, developing the interpretive centre, and 2, what I could do with it in terms of assisting the marketing of the whole place. Now, that issue of the interpretive centre and its future development has just been forgotten.
I probably need to respond to that, because I did boldly undertake to reform a committee 2 years ago, which I did not do, following the putting together of the museum following the flood, which Les and Phil McCarthy and I did over an Easter weekend. My response to that would be, I think the committee should come from the ground up, not from the top down.
Well, that's
I
right.
have spoken to Phil and encouraged him, because I believe he is working, he still comes in and does stuff within the, he's done all the research for the current paddle purpose. They've written all the copy. I believe he's working with the men's shed in terms of model building. And I've encouraged him to talk to the other 2 volunteers who work with the collection and form a working group. Is probably a better thing than a committee, because the committee just means minutes and reports. And
What it really means.
I suppose what I'm saying, Les, can you go out and find the people to put the basis of that committee together?
Certainly, Phil would certainly be one of those people. And 1 or 2 others who might not even live here. We've got a great contact with the National Maritime Museum already. We've got contacts in Adelaide. Yes, we can do that, and I think we should, because I just continue to say it's a huge chunk of assets sitting there, not being planned.
I would assume Vesna is already talking to Veronica and Babs.
She's spoken to all of them as part of the research for the paper. And the committee has been raised a few times.
So could I encourage you, Les,
Yes, sure.
to go and talk to Besno and
Yeah,
see if this could be
if
the
it's
catalyst.
here,
to bring
I'll
that
do
together?
that.
Absolutely.
I'll make your job easier. With some helpers.
There is also a lot of things that were not reinstated following the.
Absolutely.
The flood.
Well, there's
Um,
$60,000 worth of electronics there, which we got a grant for, which we developed, sitting there gathering dust.
Okay, is anybody other, Kevin, is?
Just continuing on the same topic, but a different town.
Let's bring that up in the next thing then. More than-
It's just the same topic. I think we need to do a similar thing with a working group for the Lancia building. Nothing's happened since we had Peter Hobbins over here. Just opens its doors, shuts doors, and that's the extent of the whole thing.
My question, comment was sad to see that the August escape was cancelled. It says effort is being put into the September. What sort of effort? What?
Well, we've done a heap of social media, we're trying to work with some media personalities, to try and get that promoted. It's more difficult than pulling teeth out of hens. Obviously working with the Freeland roster and making sure that we've got people which we do have and stand for that. But you know, again, it's going to come down to, you know, how lower passenger numbers can we afford to vote for before we convert it to a different type of cruise weekend. You know, and that's my part of our discussions after the workshop. In reality, we could send the boat out for 2 days with 6 people. And essentially lose money, or you send it out for 2 days with short hour cruises and eventually cover more of your costs.
But to keep cancelling once those people are in August and then it's
Reputationally,
not
it's
great.
not great.
So like I'm having to do radio and things, I have to bring around. If you give me a little what you want me to say, I'm happy to try that. Let them know that, you know, the sustainability of these cruises depends on people actually getting on board.
Can we jump to cover that in the workshop? I
Yeah,
think there's quite
yeah,
a
I
few
was going
points
to bring it
there.
up there too, yeah.
Anything else? Yeah.
Just one comment on the report. We were able to supply the Canali workboat to help out in Manham while their tender was out of service.
Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
it was appreciated, although I don't think we used it in the end, but you did volunteer
Well, it
and somebody did drag it down here. Yes.
We actually sent volunteers down to grab it.
Yep.
It was good, and we got it back for the first workshop. But working.
Well done.
Just one last question on this one. Said further testing identified problems beyond the head gasket and head. Who actually identified? Was it a mechanic or?
Was the CO2 test done? We had Van Eglinton put everything back together. It was our volunteers that did a CO2 test under instruction from Trevor's dad, who's a mechanic. And that indicated that there was a bit of colour still in there, a bit of carbon still in there, which we're now monitoring the amount of coolant we're using, just to see what the
So it was confirmed by a.
was confirmed by a test. Yeah.
I just wanted to mention, it's really this little table on visitor numbers and volunteer hours is great on page 14 that we've not had previously. I also wanted to, in the 1,497 people on short cruises for the Marion, is there a feeling for how much of that was Wooden Boat Festival?
I couldn't
No,
answer
that's
that.
right. No, it's just, it wasn't a formal question, it was just, I just thought that was a really big number. And, but also realised we put, you know, a few hundred people through on Wooden Boat Festival.
We were at
That's
one
12
stage,
months.
at one stage, we predicted that there would be 11 to 1,200 people.
Yeah.
As then Wooden Boat Festival happened, we got up to maybe 1,500. So I'd suggest that the 300 of
Yeah.
those would have come from there.
Anything else on that report? No, can I ask somebody move that we accept So thank you. Second, Warren, all in favour? Carried. 7.3. This might be Teresa's turn. Yep.
Okie dokie. So, as you can see, I always put the graphs in there with statistics and the brochure room and craft shop. So in the Lancia building, pretty self-explanatory. Rhiannon's helped me out by gathering the statistics. She does the statistics for me, and then I it's all together in a report. So we try and indicate where there are boat visits, and then when there aren't and the numbers are high, well then obviously we've just had the extra visitors come through. As I've explained previously, this all numbers and statistics depend on doors open. So whether or not we can man them by having the doors open with volunteers does impact the statistics. We're pretty pleased that our application for a Museums and Collections small grant was approved by the History Trust of SA. I put in a grant application for $2,000 towards a new display cabinet and 3 information panels to do a Morgan Historic Wharf display in the museum. We have many original artefacts that we've obtained from Adelaide. Andy picked up from the South Australian Museum, and we'd like to display them so that they're locked behind a case. And we've already put through the order for the case and the information panels. So that's excellent. We thank them for that. We're also waiting for the outcome of another grant application that we put in for the mural project. So that was a $20,000 grant. We haven't heard back yet. I have actually emailed the History Trust of SA just to see how that's sitting, because there's another grant that's opened at the moment for another 20,000, and I'd like to jump on that one as well if this one was unsuccessful. So just to know that we are trying to jump on all the grants that we can get for the museum at the moment. What else have we got? A new sign due to customer feedback at the counter. We've developed a new sign for the front. The sign will include a removable sticker option so that we're not having to replace the sign later down the track. We can just update it if we decide to change the admission price, which will save money. Pendle's tea rooms. So we've had multiple meetings for not just our working bee morning teas for the Cadell Training Centre, who have been assisting council by painting the canal. So they've been doing that on a weekly basis, usually twice a week. And I've put in here, we thank the training centre. They do a fantastic job. And in between painting, then they'll usually do some weeding around the wharf and help out our council areas. So we've also used Pendles for multiple training sessions for our volunteers. And we have had building hires in the past couple of months, and also we have one in October that's booked. So moving on to the brochure room, obviously you've got your statistics there. We did have a malfunction, as you can see, and stats weren't entered into that one, but that's all been fixed and rectified. Always positive feedback on the easy parking, the ample parking for large RV vehicles in that area. And we've had some really good feedback on the shade sails down at the playground. So no doubt as that becomes more popular through spring and summer, we're going to get more feedback. But our playground generates a lot of positivity because our riverfront is always complimented on how beautiful it looks. The Old Wharf Craft Shop. So I've generated a bit of a graph here. It may be a little bit confusing. I've read it a couple of times and I get it, but you know, I'll explain it. So basically I've done a little bit of a graph here with statistics and just sales in general, just to let you know. So in the blue section of our graph is total sales for the month, approximately, that Rhiannon has worked out for us. So an approximate sale, total sales is your blue. I just wanted to put into perspective that the orangey marker there, well, that's our supplier stock. So that's the stock from all locals, ratepayers that put their stock in there to sell. And then the green marker is the 20% commission that we get for the craft shop out of the suppliers putting their stock in there. So it's not in a total. We haven't added in the profit that we make out of our own stock and souvenirs, just to emphasise that 3/4 of all the stock sold out of the shop is through local and community members putting their goods into that shop. So we're pretty happy with that. Still get the compliment all the time by local travellers of what a little gem of a shop that we have on the riverfront, which is lovely. And then your visitor stats, obviously down the bottom. So that's pretty much it.
Thank you.
No worries.
So, great report, love reading the report, it's a great outcome with the grant and fingers crossed for the other one.
Thank you.
The only concern I have is the craft shop, like when you look at that $1,800, it's about $150 a week commission. If you were to pay, if it was a shop, say like here, the hospital auxiliary one,
Yeah.
they wouldn't be able to pay their electricity and all those other things. So I just wonder, like, instead of dropping the commission if someone helps, should we be raising the commission if you don't help? Like,
Possibility.
because I worry that if you drop it and that goes even less, you're not going to cover costs.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
Whereas,
But that's not
Yeah.
including the
That's not
profit.
including any of the
Yeah.
profit in there.
Yeah, that's
From
just.
your own-
Yeah.
So,
yeah, but I'm just saying, just for that commission, those people are earning money for not helping out, any other item that we would buy, say in the business, you double it. So you buy it for $5, you sell it for 10.
Yeah.
So only making, 10%.
We
or
have
20%.
contemplated upping it to 25, but I've put the feelers out because obviously I talk to the suppliers on a regular basis and we have to be very careful how high we up it, because if too many people pull their stock out, which I have been told a few will, then that will also, when we're not paying for the stock to begin with and then we're making 20% commission off of it, I have to be very careful how high you
Yeah,
go.
that's what I mean.
Yeah.
If you raise it so that
Yeah.
they help,
Yeah.
so that they don't
Yeah.
have to pay that extra.
Yeah,
But they're making 80% for nothing.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
if they take their stock out, then
Yeah.
where are they selling it?
Yeah. they're not-
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think, you've got feedback, but,
so do you sort of, if you're keeping it at 20% for those that do volunteer and raising it at 25% for those that are not able, to help, is that what you're sort of?
Yeah, or
Getting
raise
it?
it to 25 and down to 15, so then you're half and half,
Yeah.
so. So you're actually going to be better off, but I just worry if you decrease it, then you're not making anything.
Yeah.
Really, 10% is not much.
Mm. Yeah.
And you want to encourage people to work, so charge them more. If you don't come, then you have to pay more or lose.
Has that change been implemented?
The change?
Yeah.
We have just sent something out to implement
Because
the,
also the messaging
yeah,
messaging is important, so you could actually say, if you want to come and help, it stays the same. If you're unable to come and help, it goes up, but if
Yeah.
you've already implemented it, you can't go back.
So,
on
yeah,
that.
that makes it a bit hard.
Yeah.
We had to implement something because the doors are starting to shut a lot more. And that craft shop is our major income
Yeah.
maker. And if the difference between keeping it open and closed in a day could be $300 to $600
Yeah.
coming
Yeah.
through the door, which then impacts my reports for sustainability,
Yeah.
because the more that door stays shut, the more I can't show that it's sustainable.
Yeah.
So we tried to think of some way of generating more people into the shop, encouraging them because of the whole sustainability of each building at the moment.
And it is a general, we do want to.
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
So what's the commission rate, or how does the other private shop work? If people pull their stuff out?
The private shop up on
Yeah.
4th Street, I have no idea.
And they have to help. When
Yeah, I don't know.
Sharon was running, you have to help.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Change hands.
That would be first point to
See what they,
jump out from, is
Yeah.
knowing your own market. And then,
The other issue I see with that is people will put their name on the roster, so they're only paying the 10% or whatever, and pull out.
they have to do a timesheet.
So if they don't perform, then they don't do
No.
the, it's why I see it, I don't know.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. No, they have to actually volunteer.
So would you be looking at, volunteering in the shop itself or in the precinct?
In the precinct, I think as well, because I've got a couple of volunteers that have started in the craft shop and then due to, their own reasons, they would prefer to be in the museum. So then I can't sort of take that away from them because they're technically still volunteering, and then I feel like you've given it to them and then you take it away. But mainly we're trying to focus on the craft shop. I mean, the museum's the same at the moment. I've got volunteers out for 3 weeks at a time, and they do 3 days a week in the museum. And I either have to put a sign on the door to say bookings by appointment or come see us at the office. But when you look at the craft shop, you sort of really need to stay open because it sells all your souvenirs. So, and yeah, but I'll take that on board. We'll have to have a think about it. I feel like I don't know how I could approach that now after just putting the letter out.
I don't think you can now.
No.
Ultimately, I think this is the next tranche of the sustainability report, because council needs to determine whether the craft shop is a community service or a business. And I think what you've done in terms of volunteering is excellent. At the point you're looking to build volunteer base, because you get one volunteer from a family, and you might end up with somebody else coming in who's going to be working on the canal.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So that I think, and then the grassroots level of it is good. My personal ambition would be that we have a system whereby, which I've mentioned before, craft from the craft shop could come to Mount, which is, I think, problematic in terms of point of sale. Then you could actually go and say, well, he could put in another condition structure and say, well, actually, it can be the visitor information centre at Manor, and so you'll turn more over, but that's more complicated again.
Through the chair, Teresa. Is there a requirement to be a regular volunteer to get the discount that you proposed?
Oh, we just put a once a month. At the moment, you have to be on there once a month. And we have actually got like one supplier that's already jumped in, and she's doing basically twice a week at the moment. So, yeah,
That's a good outcome.
yeah, it is a good outcome. I'm happy with it so far. The other ways that we can address is that to obviously help the volunteers and benefit the volunteers, because it's an incentive for them to volunteer to get that bit of a perk on their sales, is that we just look at our own souvenirs and we start addressing maybe pricing or marking up some of our own, but keep looking after the suppliers and the volunteer side of things. Because now that we sent out that letter, it could be a bit messy. So maybe we just have a look at our own branding products and souvenirs. And I mean, there is room. We always have a little bit of room to mark things up. Yeah, so we'll have to have a look at it.
We also need to work with suppliers as well, because some of the items that are for sale in the craft shop are ridiculously low, and they could be earning more money for themselves, right? We need to work with them and say, look, we're actually going to retail that for $5 more than you. So our commission will be on a greater price. With one sale, they'll still sell. They'll make more money. We'll make more money. You know, and we've got people to keep doors open, which means whatever is sold, we're making some money for the electricity.
Some of those items in there are worth far more than what.
They are. But then there is one supplier that I've approached about that, because I've said you're underselling yourself, and they refuse to up them because they love the fact they turn over so much, and they're doing it out of love and passion and a hobby, and they're worried that if they mark it up too much, their stock won't turn over.
The other issue that I see in the craft shop is there is one particular supplier in there that undercuts what everybody else is doing. So you need to have
balance.
Balance, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good discussion. So who sets the prices?
So the supplier, and they have to set their own prices, but knowing that 20% comes.
So maybe that's part of, I get you've done the 10%.
Yeah.
And you could also look at going, oh, well, if you're not going to support us, then you're going up to 30%.
Yeah.
You know, you could go the other way, because that
Yeah.
doesn't undermine what you've done with the volunteers.
Yeah, that's right.
So part of the consideration, an agreement for your sales and your stock, that we will have a conversation with you about pricing,
Yeah,
and we will set the pricing.
yeah.
But the pricing doesn't get volunteers, that's why I thought if you put it up, you have to pay more commission if you don't help,
Yeah.
then you might.
Yeah.
get
So that helps with volunteers, but to Annie's point, if you said, oh, okay, we feel that this should be an extra $5,
Yeah.
then that $5, it doesn't cut into their margin, well, they might get a little bit more because they'll get 10% of an extra $5, but then that goes into the profit margin from that.
Yeah.
Because you would mark normal supply up by 50%.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Easy. Yeah.
Easy.
Yeah. Our stocks 100%
Yeah.
comes on
That's what I mean.
souvenirs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think maybe there's a double-edged
Yeah,
consideration that doesn't undermine what you've done
Yeah,
to
yeah,
incentivise
yeah.
volunteers,
yeah,
but there's two other elements to
Yeah.
that as an
Yeah.
extension.
You could do another
Yeah.
letter next month, so we only got one, so we're gonna have to put commissions
yeah,
up
that,
to-
yeah, that's true, that could
Yeah.
work, because you can keep the commission at those that have already volunteering at below,
Yeah.
but then up the others.
You're giving something, not taking something away.
Yeah.
You're
I
working on
do
it.
plan on
Yeah.
bringing this up in the briefing anyway.
Okay.
Yeah.
Other ideas got around.
You're working with carrots, you're gonna work with carrots, not sticks.
Yeah, that's it.
Anything else on?
Mr.
sorry?
Chairman, please, can I just jump in here, just because I take my hat off to the Port of Morgan and what they're doing there, it's brilliant, you're so proactive there, and I think it just reiterates the point for you, Les, that Manham's come to a stop. And that's not having a go at anyone, and just to hear what you're doing there, it's amazing. And it just reiterates your
That's
point,
exactly right. I mean,
that's all I want.
Port of Morgan is so proactive. You guys are a model. Okay, you've got a lot of things you're trying to balance, but you're doing it.
Yeah, and I do agree with Kevin that we do need a little group for the museum. It's a lot to try and keep multiple buildings going and then trying to get a new vessel going at the same time. It's
Yeah.
quite a
Doing
juggling act.
fabulous.
So, yeah.
So on that note, as a volunteer, I'm prepared to work with the people that open the museum. If, do I have to get permission to do this or?
I don't know what you're gonna say.
Have you ever asked for permission before?
No, just the guys, there's 3 or 4 of them open the museum. I'd like to work with them as a working group to, you know, boost up Lancea building.
Mm.
I mean, years ago, we had a, you know, like a committee, but I don't want to go to committee form with
Yeah,
all that stuff.
that's a good
that goes with it.
idea because the people that are actually behind the counters, customer service,
They're the ones
are
that
the ones
know.
that hear what the
Yeah.
customer would like to
And
see.
I want to know what they're thinking.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
I think also in terms of the overall timing, you know, you can actually say to the community, say to your volunteers, once Canali fires, there's going to be an
Yeah.
enormous amount of immediate attention.
Yeah.
And if it all goes to plan, we're going to have more people there. So let's
Yeah.
get our ducks in line now.
Yeah. And I'd like to, you know, just, if they've got ideas on what they want to do in Lancea building rather than be it's the same old place where you open the door and nothing's changed for the last 25 years. I mean, you know,
Yeah.
people have seen it. They
Yeah.
need something new.
Those old sewing machines, that like.
So through the chair, I'm mindful you need to move on.
Yeah.
It's just a comment around, Andy doesn't want extra committees, which I get.
Yeah.
But there needs to be some governance structure
Yeah,
that there's some accountability.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because then what's happening is these working groups, which I fully support, and we want to improve our museums or the Discovery Centre. But then they just can't go away and do things.
Yeah.
So there needs to be some processes to come up with ideas, and you know, Andy doesn't want minutes and agendas and all those things, because I get it, because it's another layer of bureaucracy. But there does need to be some structure to implement the ideas, or, you know, have a budget discussion, because you might come up with this idea and go, okay, where does this go?
yeah,
So streamline in it, and Andy's made that comment about tranche 2, to try to make sure that there's effectiveness in what we're doing, and we're not getting buried in bureaucracy.
And just like the Manning Dock, Vestner will be assigned to work with a working party there. Teresa or Rhiannon will be assigned to work with a working party at Lancea.
all right,
And
yeah,
then their requests for use of budget will then come to myself, and it'll probably be approved or disallowed, or will apply for a grant, depending on how, on what we're looking to. A lot more simple, I think it would be effective, and it will keep both of those museums morphing along rather than just sitting.
Just a quick add to what Warren said, Manning does have to be careful, because I've had a few complaints that what we're selling is because the manufacturing might be selling, so we do have to be careful of that competitive neutrality, and I guess with Morgan the Craft Shop, we probably should be finding out what that other group is charging, so that we're not undercutting them, and then we'll have that complaint from them, because it is a gem, we don't want to lose it.
Yeah.
But we'll talk in the briefing, because I get my mind is not crazy. Ideas.
I'd like to move on. Would somebody like to, Kevin, moving to accept the report, Di seconding, all in favour? Thank you, Trace, that's good, and a good discussion. 7.4 Canali, who wants to take Canali, Andy or Kevin? Or do you want to do a tag team?
Randy can do it.
What is it?
truth.
Why not? Hey? I will
There's
note
tricky
that.
questions
there-
about those bearings.
Yeah, no, all that technical stuff, that's Kevin's.
Don't talk technical with us.
Yeah, technical is not me with boats, all right? And yes, I will note that there's been a mistake, so I must have uploaded attachments a little bit incorrectly, but anyway, we had one meeting in the last period on the 23rd of July, and that's in the attachment there. And we've had another one last Friday, but we haven't finished the meeting notes for that. So brief discussion. So obviously we've gone through the Kiddo Training Centre, have been conducting regular working bees, which is fantastic. Big help to us. Simon Huntington's been on to complete the following tasks: the installation of the short stroke pump, eccentric cover, installation of steam shut-off valve controls rod, adjustment of reversing gear control rod. We've had working bee weekend. So Phil led the team for that one, didn't you, Phil, for the 9th of August?
I was there.
Yeah, you were there. No, you do a good job. So yeah, so they got a variety of jobs as listed there, done on that working bee. And we have another one scheduled for the 13th. We have the operations group have endorsed Lee Heusler as our wood processing team leader for the Canali. So we've got fortnightly wood cutting commenced again. I think back on around it's been going for another month again, back in full swing fortnightly. We do struggle sometimes to get numbers out. So we have put another email out to all volunteers in other areas to see if they want to jump in and do an extra, come in and try some, might help out with the wood team, because at the moment, you know, we're getting like only 3 rocking up for a wood loading day. It's not really worth it because it's quite a lot to do and it puts a lot of strain on the others. So we've put out another email to try and generate some more interest from the other areas in our volunteers to see if they'll jump in. We do have one extra in 2 days. Another person from the Canali crew has jumped on board to do wood loading. What else have we got? Oh, the committee have been working through the final list of engineering jobs. And in the last meeting that we had, that was endorsed by the PS Canali Operations Group and accepted, and will be presented in one of these reports. Anything else?
We're about to move on to the meaty stuff with Canali. So in terms of 7.4,
Just the attachments say the meeting notes from the 25th of July and the 12th of August.
Yeah, don't look at those attachments.
Yeah, okay.
Right, that was
There's
like,
nothing
I don't know
interesting
what I
in
did to poor Carol, but I think I must have attached the wrong thing, Carol, or I've duplicated it.
Yeah.
Because I thought, well, clearly, like, if you didn't read it properly the first time, get it again the
Yeah,
second
I was
time.
thinking, am I reading the same thing?
Yeah, that was my mistake.
All right, cool. There's nothing interesting in the 12th of August that we need.
There
to
wasn't
know
even a
about?
12th of August, so
okay.
I'm not really sure what happened there. So.
Excellent.
thank you for spotting that near Bailey with your eagle
I
eye.
thought I was going
No, I went crazy when I read this and rang Andy yesterday and went, oh my God, what have I done?
That was a test.
Can I have somebody move to accept that report? Mayor Bailey, thank you. Bill seconded, carry in favour. Unanimous, carried, thank you. Now the meaty one on Canali 7.5.
So this is work that's been ongoing for quite some time, and I'd like to thank Kevin for stepping up and refining a very exhausting and complicated list of engineering jobs, which was made even more complicated every time we asked someone for their opinion, because everyone that we asked had a different opinion as to what needed to be done. Ben and I have spent a number of hours talking about finishing off the Canali, making sure that the amount of money that we need is within budgets, and the work that Kevin has done is obviously refine that list down to a manageable and within budget total, which is fantastic. We're also working with a new engineer, Mick Connolly, just outside of Waikerie there, Ramco, I think. Ramco. And Mick is a combination of volunteer stroke supplier stroke contractor. So he's more than happy to assist the Port of Morgan group in getting Canali up to speed. We've refined what we need, what we actually need. to be fit for purpose and not Rolls Royce. So we're working along that approach. So bottom line is that there's $21,859, which was brought forward from last year's operating budgets to cover the engineering jobs for PS Canali. The required amount is around 16,950, but knowing Heritage Boats the way we do, every time you open something, something else squeaks, and results in a little bit of extra work. So with that list and contingencies, the committee are asked to endorse the recommendations so that Ben and I can have your expertise and knowledge to move forward with confidence and finally get these engineering jobs finished. Discussion. Kevin, do you want to add something?
When I worked through to get these fixed, we had like 3 spreadsheets that had was a combination of 3 different engineers using their own terms. Like there would be 3 different names for the one part. And that's where the whole thing became confusing. So you really had triple the amount of jobs. So I had to isolate them all back to a simple thing. That's how I came up with the jobs. Then I did a quick trip over to Echuca to go on the Adelaide over there, which operates very similar engines to Canali. So I found out a few things that possibly have been not being done on Canali, which will make the engines run better. And as Andy mentioned with the new engineer, Mick Connolly, it's a total fresh set of eyes. And he's already identified most of the problems with the Canali's engine. Just a matter of fixing them there. So that's about it.
And he and Simon working in conjunction with each
Oh,
other, or there's someone's
Simon's work is pretty well finished. He's still there if we need him.
Yep.
But Simon comes from Mount Compass.
Yeah.
It's a very difficult mix, around
About a quarter of an hour.
So we're looking for Mick to take the leading engineer role in the relationship.
Can I ask a big question?
Sorry?
Just, obviously, I don't know the first thing about engineering, and quite happily admit that. But I was, and I don't want to poke my finger in here to the Canali's matters, but as a captain, we went up for that practice when on the Canali, and I'm just wondering if it's going to be looked at. And I've seen Jim May once involved, so I'm sure Jim will be looking at it. But the communications between the wheel house down to the engineer,
All fixed.
it's all well. That's absolutely,
We got a brand new bell off of
it does look bloody nice.
a railway crossing in Victoria. And it's very loud.
Fantastic.
Anything
Job
else
done,
in
yeah.
terms of discussion? Any more questions? So the recommendation is that the PS Canali outstanding area engineering jobs and costings report on the Mid-Murray Heritage and Maritime Committee agenda of 25 August 2025 be received. The Mid-Murray Heritage and Maritime Committee endorse the outstanding engineering jobs required to enable the PS Canali to be fit for purpose and operational, listed in the PS Canali outstanding area engineering jobs and costings report. And 3, the Mid-Murray Heritage and Maritime Committee recommend to council that it supports the expenditure of up to $22,000 for these works. Would somebody like to move that recommendation? Di, thank you. Seconds, Warren. And we have a vote on that. All in favour? Is that unanimous? Thank you. Moved. 7.6. Financials.
This is my favourite report of every agenda.
It actually is mine.
Funny about that.
That's why they make it so small.
Yes.
Well, Clive has written this one. So Clive Hempel was the Director of Corporate and Financial Services post John Howell's retirement. So Clive again has looked at this, I guess, with a new lens. The report content there, most things are operating within operating budgets with a couple of minor exceptions to that. The budget sheets, which are there for the period ending 30th June of full financial year record, so it's a good position to be in. We need to understand and make sure I'm right in what I say here. Of those numbers, or the total deficit, also includes capital expenditure for vessels, which included the actual amount of $209,000. So you know, those capital expenditures are incorporated in those numbers, and the other remaining high value component staff wages. Because without staff, we can't coordinate all of those areas, and without volunteers, we can't run them. So all in all, the budget in $70,000 under, $73,000 under what was allocated for the financial year, as well as reallocating some money for other projects like the removal of the ferry and carrying forward some of those funds for PS.
Any questions from the floor?
Just a comment, I've asked Clive about this, so there's a full cost attribution on this, so council have done a bit of work to say the craft shop, the accounts payable officer spends 2 hours doing invoices. That now, from next financial year, is going to be allocated to each item, so trying to put all of the staff costs that just go to general to exactly where they go, so this will look worse. A lot worse to come once we allocate out the rest of council's costs.
What I'm hoping at the moment is that is separately indicated.
Yes, it'll be a separate
and that makes it easy for the community to understand what's operation.
But we do need to understand, so
We need
yeah,
to
we
understand.
make $600 in commission, but it costs X amount to do the invoices. But we really need a full story to go, is this sustainable, what should?
Exactly.
Sorry, could I ask a quick
Yeah,
question?
Warren, yes.
Just, yeah, I think my skills are as good as my engineering monthly expenses. But just looking at the comments in the Marion section, I do apologise if I'm not looking at the canonic too much, but she's not actually working at the moment. But it's saying how good the day short trips are, but it's got their higher crew expenses. What the hell are we paying?
The cost of volunteer food.
Well, no, but it says crew expenses.
Yeah. The crew expenses are
To crew so it's
crew
not
the
actual
vessel.
people, it's what you need to
Right, okay.
run the Marion, catering, linen, bar, fuel.
yeah, it's crew expenses plus catering. Linen services costing us nearly $1,500 a cruise where we've got passengers.
For what,
and
sorry?
full crew.
The-
For linen.
I know that, and I know that's there, and I know that you're.
I think Warren, it's
Crew,
where
that's-
it's higher
No, the
crew expenses, catering,
comma.
so higher
Yeah.
crew expenses, higher catering expenses, higher
Yes.
linen services,
Right.
higher bar and fuel. It's just the higher leading centre, leading.
That's
zone.
right.
So I think it's higher, all of those things
Yes.
is how I interpret it.
It is.
So I've got a few things that I'll defer to the workshop, but for the benefit of this meeting, the capital works that were paid for by the Rockford Fund on Marion's boiler pipes last year, they appear in this.
No, they do not omitted from this. So $46,000 of capital works for PS Canal came out of the Rockford sponsorship fund.
Marion.
Marion, sorry. I've got too many points.
No.
So $46,000 was allocated from the sponsorship fund. There is an agreement which is not quite finalised, but almost finalised to work through that fund and its uses, but that hadn't been reflected in.
So that's not, yeah, so this then is effectively a full profit and loss for the operation for a 12-month period.
Without full cost attribution.
Without this, and we could also argue about depreciation, but we
Yeah.
Yeah, depreciation is occurring in this year's budget.
Yeah.
It's a proper depreciable amount.
So I've got one question.
Kevin,
So in the previous item, 7.5, we discussed the sum of 21,859 carried forward. So where does that appear here?
It isn't in there because that is last financial year's total summary. It will be included in the, oh, sorry, it is,
Yeah, so the budget was 52, we only spent 29, so there's 22 left, so then we'll put it to council that we use that 22 for the remainder.
that's the process.
That's what happens when it's so small.
Yes.
well, the
Don't worry, I'll try to
number,
find it, where is it?
the number or the point size?
Big on screen.
Anything else from the floor regarding financial report? In that case, can I ask somebody, Kevin, second, Les, and carried. Thank you. 7.7, Mid-Murray Council fees and charges.
Okay, so a lot of this work is going to be undertaken in the workshop. The recommendation is that we review and identify target markets, strategies to reach those target markets, assess profitability of cruise types and consider short weekend escape cruises. Then we'll have a better platform to work with our cruise schedules and determine the cost of cruising and also fees and charges. So a few years ago, we increased the fees and charges quite significantly. Since then, there's obviously been higher or increased cost of living expenses. Some of our regular clientele, which the baby boomer age is such a broad age of people that the older part of that demographic, now reporting it's more difficult to climb stairs, sleep in bunks. Those they still come, but the younger part of that demographic, such as over myself and Andrew, I think he's not fully into it. We're still capable of doing that. So who is our target market and how are we going to reach it is a really important part of it. Leads that discussion into marketing. And of course, fees and charges. Earlier in the year, council approved an increase in fees and charges for all the short cruising to cover off on the volunteer travel reimbursement expenses plus CPI for those. So they've already been implemented, and we're working now to have consideration for the longer cruise types if we're still able to deliver those. Is it value for money, or we need to put the prices up, or how are we going to do that and make sure we keep people on our boats? We overprice it, we're not going to get anyone. We underprice it, we're going to get too many and make no money. Sustainability isn't necessarily always about making sure we make money, but at the end of the day, we don't want council to be forking out $300,000 a year to maintain or operate a boats.
So who are we currently targeting?
We're targeting anyone that wants to go on the vessel. And there are different demographics for the different types of cruises. Short cruises are great for everyone that's in man and family and things like that because they're affordable. Longer term cruises, we're still trying to target those older people who don't have dependent children anymore. But got a question that, our marketing techniques haven't changed.
No.
And, that's another body of work all that same, hence why this committee needs to give some guidance to who we really want to be targeting.
I thought it's not true. I've spoken to you before. I was speaking to I can't remember whether it was Apex Lions, Rotary Provis, but they do bus tour type things. I can't, have we reached out to them or Mid-Murray, what's it called, Murray Mallee Aged Care do bus tours and, you know, have we written to all of them to say, hey, this is what we offer with the group, you know, takes a letter and, you know, finding all the links and sending it off, but could be some easy wins.
Are we able to use the footage that was taken of the area that was going down to Gawler?
Yeah.
And that little short film is really emotive and really beautiful. So as far as a marketing sort of thing, are we able to use that? To just sort of have that sort of video sort of play?
Yeah, we can use it as
Yeah.
part of it.
Yeah.
We've got full permission to do
I think that would be really be, for people that sort of, that sort of emotion thing of being on the, because it's lovely with the sound and the paddles and everything, so there, and also we've got, not to sort of, benefit from misfortune, but with the algal bloom and the water off limits in the sea, we've got the river. So, you know, somebody wants a.
We created it,
Yeah.
come back to us.
Can I, not wanting to cut you off, but the dot points which are in this, or we've actually echoed
Yeah.
straight into the,
Okay.
and can we, I'd like to push this into the workshop, because we've got some stuff on comparative figures of other cruises, so we need to go through and.
I like that it says no immediate, so that we can go back and change it.
Yeah, I think that's the, so if I can steer us then, back to the recommendation, and get that through, which is
Page 34.
page 34. The recommendation is that the Mid-Murray Council fees and charges 2025-2026 report on the Mid-Murray Heritage and Maritime Committee agenda of the 28th of August be received. That the MMH and MC proposes to the Mid-Murray Council that there be no immediate amendment to fees and charges for 2025-26. And thirdly, that the MMH and MC spend adequate resources to identify and attract appropriate target markets for the Piers Marion overnight cruises and evaluate profitability of cruise types. Would somebody like to move that recommendation? Thank you, Les. Second, Warren's first, and all in favour, unanimous, carried. Thank you. I'm pushing us along. 7.8.
Not only tell it in the video.
I know, Tim. This is the biggest and meatiest one of all. So the review of maritime assets and operations. There's a single recommendation here. Can I kick it to you first, Andy?
This is basically updating the committee on the decision of council from its meeting of the meeting of the
5th of August?
Yeah. So the council resolved the operations report was received, further investigation on the viability of leasing the council's maritime assets and the divestment of operations to other entities been undertaken as further investigation, including an assessment of potential interest and further consultation and engagement with key stakeholders we undertaken as outlined in the engagement plan. So council have endorsed those. We are now working with that engagement plan, and Ben and I are talking about that. Designing how that's going to pan out. You've got a copy of that. You've got a full copy of the council report with the background for that. Shouldn't be anything new in there. And the full sustainability draft report, which you got a copy within minutes. So the recommendation is that you receive the decision of council, rather than question the decision of council. However, we will talk about the engagement plan further in the workshop and what that really means and how this committee will be involved in recommending further to council.
Two things I want to reiterate through the chair. draft report, so draft management review, which was tabled with council, and they're just receiving this report and endorsing the decision of council.
Any questions or comments? On the record, would like to commend Andy for putting together this body of work. Because I see it being thorough and balanced, and also a reference that as we move forward, we can go back to come up with a base number for many things, to query things. It's a starting point of a whole pile of stuff that's been collated. Can I ask, has everybody watched the video of the council meeting that I sent out a link?
I didn't watch it.
You might have been there. For those members on the committee who have not done so, I recommend strongly it's 15 minutes. And I think I sent out a link with the timestamp on that. I recommend you go and watch that because it gives you a thorough understanding of where the council is currently at the moment, in understanding what we do, what we're about, and also the things that are on their minds, because I think that's important. Working forward, I was in watching it was somewhat surprised, but also somewhat flattered that the reference is from the council out to this committee, in that the council are genuinely looking to this committee to give advice.
So what surprised you?
Just as they kept on talking about it, saying,
Yeah.
oh, the committee, oh, that's us, gee, we've got advice on that.
One thing this council is really aware of is that we need better engagement. So we appreciate committees like this. We've got some great volunteers that put in a lot of time, and we have to listen and, take on their advice.
And that was actually a key thing through the chair. But Andy and I, we drafted the report, but we want the feedback on it, whether we're off the mark, whether there's things that we've missed. And that's what the engagement plan is around, further consultation. So we want to be challenged. We want to, we want the committee and the broader stakeholders that Andy's identified through the engagement plan to provide feedback. So then we can go back to council and say, we agree with this, we don't agree with this. You haven't thought about that. We've engaged with stakeholders. There's no interest in divesting the operations, or yes, absolutely there is. The conversation around as a package versus separating the boats. Nothing's off the table.
Yeah.
But we want to be challenged and get feedback from those that understand what is so important about the heritage, maritime heritage, but also to make them potentially more sustainable.
And if I'd like to add that we also have to and want to engage with the whole community, like we've got ratepayers at Truro and, other people that put in for our maritime operations. So if you can, try and get that positive work. There was a post on one of the pages yesterday about we don't want the money spent on this boat. And I just think, how good is that for your community? You just don't get it. So, get out into your community and make sure you're telling those people you have to sell that story, because council ultimately have to make a decision based on the best outcomes of the entire community. That's by legislation. That's how we have to make a decision. We want to make sure that we're getting a good round story. So make sure you're telling people what it does for your community.
So to be a little bit out there.
Put on Facebook, your private pages, make sure that those haters are getting the full story. You don't have to be against them, just tell the positives.
So it was on 5 news this morning.
Oh, was it?
About this.
Can we push that to the workshop? I want to open the workshop briefly with the continued discussion on this, but a very brief one. The intention is that we have a special general committee meeting to go through the report in depth and formulate our next steps with council. Today, I would like to immediately look at the evaluation plan, which is in process at the moment. For the purposes of concluding the meeting now, I would ask somebody to Move.
Receive and
Move the recommendation, which is
receive the report.
receive the report, that's it. Thank you, Di. Anybody to second that? Warren? And in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. We are received, or the report is received. Item 8 on our agenda, questions without notice. We should have a buzzer, really, shouldn't we? I can take that. We have no questions without notice. And our next meetings will be held in Morgan on 10 a.m. on Thursday, the 23rd of October. Thank you. And with that, I'll close this meeting and we'll move to the workshop. Thank you, Sue.
Time to make a coffee.
Yes, closing the meeting at 11:15.